Meet Noah, 28 years of age. Clearly though, what distinguishes him and makes his story worth telling is not his age but a certain fact about him, the fact that he always knew deep down that he was different from everyone else. It was no mere feeling, it was etched into his being. Sadly, the difference I am referring to in this case is not an advantageous one. No matter how close Noah got to people, and no matter how many friends he made, he felt an indescribably heavy loneliness that weighed on him, one so dense its gravity could be felt. And it never seemed to go away. Growing up, he struggled to find anyone who shared his interests and resemblances of passions, and as a result, he often felt like he was on the outside looking in. An outcast even, despite his best efforts, Noah could never seem to shake the feeling of unwanted solitude. He tried it all, from joining clubs and organizations to attending social events, but nothing seemed to make a difference. As time went on, he began to accept that maybe he was just destined to be lonely, maybe that was simply his twisted fate, but then, and this is the part where stories usually actually begin, one day, something happened that changed everything. As insignificant as the situation may appear to you, it threw Noah's life into unprecedented chaos. Noah found himself in a situation that forced him to confront his deepest fears and vulnerabilities, and in the process, he discovered a newfound sense of purpose and belonging that he had never felt before. It all started when Noah's job required him to move to a new city, far away from his hometown and his comfort zone, after all the years of hard work and effort it took to create the resemblance of a social life Noah had in his city. Despite his anxious side, Noah was still willing to give the opportunity a chance. In fact, after giving it some deep thought, he was excited about this new change and the chance to start fresh in a new place, as a new person. Sadly, as the weeks went by, the solitary behavior that made Noah who he was in his hometown slowly crept him into the same archetype in the new city. Realizing his hopelessness and failure to start a new different life, he began to feel more and more isolated, even more so than the loneliness that usually gloomed over him in the past. No matter how hard he tried to make connections in this new city, he still felt like he didn't belong. He spent most of his free time alone, as he had the habit of doing, either watching TV or reading books. Sometimes, he would take long walks around the city, hoping to stumble upon something that would spark his interest. One fateful day, forced out by his cigarette, or lack thereof, to buy a new pack, he came across a small community center that was hosting a poetry reading. Noah had always been interested in the fine arts, but he had never shared his interest with anyone out of fear of ridicule. Something about the event drew him in, and mustering a lifetime's worth of courage, through thinking that whatever happens wouldn't matter since he would have to change the city again either way, he decided to attend. As he sat there listening to the poets read their work, he felt something deep in his chest, swaying him with the words and emotions they were expressing. For the first time ever, he felt, despite not uttering a single word, that he had found a group of people who understood him on a level deeper than he had ever hoped to experience. After the reading was over, Noah, still anxious, reluctantly introduced himself to a few of the poets and struck up a conversation. They invited him to join their poetry group, and he eagerly accepted. Over the coming weeks and months, he began to attend weekly meetings and participate in group readings. He felt like he had finally found a place where he belonged. Through his involvement with the poetry group, Noah's life had taken a dramatic turn. He also started meeting other people who shared his interests and passions. He started forming deep and subjectively meaningful friendships that he sincerely thought would last a lifetime. And for the first time in his life, he thought he no longer felt lonely. Looking back on his journey, Noah realized that his loneliness had been a blessing in disguise. It led him to the community center that day, where he found the courage to explore his love of poetry and connect with like-minded individuals. He knew that he would never forget the lessons he learned about the power of community. And he was grateful for the journey that had led him to where he was today and for the friendships that he had formed. But just when he thought everything was going perfectly, a shocking twist of fate, once again, threw his world into the depths of chaos. One evening, while walking home from a poetry reading, Noah was hit by a car. He was rushed to the hospital with severe injuries, and doctors weren't sure if he would make it. As he lay in his hospital bed, defeated and anxiously anticipating his creeping demise, he couldn't help but think about all the things he had left unfinished and the people he would leave behind. But then, something miraculous happened. One of the poets from his group came to visit him in the hospital, and with her she brought a notebook filled with the poems that they had written together. She read them to him, one by one, and as she did, Noah felt his spirits lift. He realized that even if he didn't make it, he had left a piece of himself behind in those poems, finding solace in his pseudo-immortality. To everyone's surprise, Noah did make a full recovery. But to no one's surprise, he was forever changed by the experience, thankfully, not in a negative way this time. He knew that he was given a second chance, and he was determined to make the most of it. He continued to write poetry and share it with the world, and he inspired others to do the same. Years later, when he became an old man, he received a letter from a young woman who had stumbled upon one of his poems. She wrote to tell him how much it had meant to her, and how it had helped her through a difficult time in her life. Noah was touched by her words, and he realized that the impact of his poetry had far exceeded anything he could have ever imagined. In the end, Noah learned that true connection and belonging can come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the greatest gifts in life come from the darkest moments. Thank you for tuning in.